everybody. I'm Greg.
And I'm Katie. Welcome to the Meeple Society. Today we are on episode 53, part 2 of the ends. As before, we're doing kind of a shorter format, fewer games. As always, let us know what you think about that in the comments if you like that format, if you don't. But before we get started, please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you like this type of content, and of course hit that bell icon if you want notification of future content.
And you can follow the link below to see us on all of our social media.
Oh. All right, let's get started.
So no going back on this one.
No.
So we're going to start off with a little bitty card game from
Nile.
Minion Games called Nile.
Yeah, I found this one at Goodwill for like $1, $2 at most.
And it was
Unopened.
Yeah.
So I was very curious about it, and that was actually a few years ago. It sat on the shelf that long. So this one is, it's all about, well, you're farming. Mm-hmm. It's all about agriculture type of thing.
Yep.
So you have your flood card. All right, so essentially everybody gets a stack of cards. Or you don't get a stack, you get a hand of cards. What, 5?
5 cards.
5 cards. You have your flood tile. This is basically your...
That's the start.
This is the start of the discard pile.
That's where the flood goes.
Yeah, this is where the start of the flood thing. You've got a plague of locusts that gets shuffled in here. And when that'll come out twice during the game. And then, well, things happen. So the way this one plays, everybody has a hand of 5 cards. You are laying out sets of different types of agriculture in order to gain points with any luck. So if I had this set in my hand, there's 5 different types of agriculture. Each type of agriculture can only be on the table once. So no matter how many people are playing, and this plays 6 players, doesn't it?
This plays
5. 5, okay.
And the locust will come out depending on how many players you have, because you go through the deck
twice,
equal to the amount of players.
Wow. Okay. Well, yeah, that makes sense.
So in a 2-player game, it came out twice.
Twice. Okay. All right, that makes sense.
I was going to say, I thought that's what it was. I just wanted to double check.
No, that makes sense. Okay. So each type of agriculture can only be on the table one time. So if I had these, I might lay out the caster. And I will lay this down in front of me.
Depend on what card flipped over.
Right. So I will lay this out. Then my turn would pass. So I can lay out as many of one card as I like, but it has to be a minimum of 2 or 1 more than what somebody else has. Now, if Greg had 2 caster in the front of him, he would have to take those cards and put them into the discard pile, because mine beats him now. He can't have his. At the beginning of the next player's turn, they would pull a flood card, and whatever that flood card is, whoever owns the wheat, it doesn't have to be necessarily the person whose turn it is, that person would have to get rid of 1 wheat card off the top of their pile, and then that goes into the flood pile. That wheat card that they would pull off of their pile in front of them would go into a scoring pile. That scoring pile can be used in a couple of different ways, but it goes off to the side. Hopefully you're going to score that card at the end of the game. And then that person would proceed with their turn. So say they had 2 lettuce, they would lay down 2 lettuce in front of them, draw back up to 5 at the end of each turn, and then play proceeds. You draw the next one. Oh, look, caster's pulled up. So we would lay that down. I would take a caster and sit it into my scoring pile. Simple as that. So there are other types of cards in the deck, if I can find one. There are what are those called?
There's papyrus. There are
flack. Oh, here we go. Speculation.
And the speculations.
So if you have a speculation card, you can lay down either 1 or 2 of them in place of laying down any agriculture. Maybe you don't have enough of something to lay down. So in place of that, you can lay down a speculation card, 1 or 2. Those go in front of you. They act as 2 different types of agriculture, both lettuce and
wheat.
In this case, lettuce and wheat. If the next card pulled is that, if I matched the wheat and or the lettuce, then I would be able to draw 3 to 6 cards from the discard pile, or from the draw deck, from the draw deck into my hand. You only ever draw 2 cards at the end of your turn.
Yes.
No matter how many cards you laid down in front of you. So you may get to a point where you only have 2 cards in your hand. This is a way to boost your hand. So it is kind of valuable. The other card in the deck is, of course, the Plague of Locusts. If this one ever comes up, whoever has the most cards in one field has to discard their entire field. So if this is what the fields look like, we would both have to discard because we're tied. If two players had 4, those 4s, the whole pile would be discarded. I mean, that's essentially it. At the end of the game, everybody looks at their scoring pile. You add up how many you have of each one. And whichever is your lowest, that becomes the cards you're scoring. So
and you score a point per card.
You score a point per card of your lowest type. So you want to try to keep what you're pulling and what you're laying down balanced. Because if you have none of something, guess what? Your score is a 0.
Yeah, as I was saying,
So,
in the game we played, it was like, what, 2-1?
Yeah.
That was the score.
2-1. But it was fast.
Yes.
It wasn't a long game by any stretch. So yeah, I thought it was a cute game. It's not one that's going to sit in our collection. I bought this originally for the travel collection. It is going to just stay over there in the one of the card decks. So that is, oops, get those in there. There we go. And that is Nile. Is there even a tagline on this? The Game of Ancient Agriculture. All right.
Next, we have
The Networks.
the networks.
So yeah, we got a 5-player game of this in, very different than playing it just 2-player. But it still essentially played the same. I mean, it wasn't, I enjoyed it at 5, but it wasn't drastically different than at 2.
No, just the cards up top disappeared a little bit.
Yes, you had fewer card options. All right, so the way this one plays, you are essentially playing a producer or a scheduler. You're a network schedule maker. I don't know what their actual official title is called, but you are trying to line up shows during prime time on a major network. You're trying to hire the stars. You are for the shows, which I don't find that being their job, but that's okay. It's it's a game. You're trying to add in the commercials, all these different things to score you points. It's essentially what you're doing. It's all points. So everybody starts with a basic schedule. So for instance, the blue player's initial 3 titles, and this is where we laughed at some of these names. The blue player's initial 3 shows that he has to line up in his 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and 10 o'clock slots are Cooking for Your Gerbil, Name That Stain, and Litter Training Weekly. So, and I got news for you. They don't get much better than this.
No. Well, they do, but yeah.
And then you also have an ad you can slot in somewhere for hipster gaming consoles. And then that's your network VP is your actor.
They add viewers.
Yes.
Because the base ones, the ones you start with, have no viewers.
Yes.
So you've got to add things to get them.
Would you watch
Or
a show
update.
called Cooking for Your Gerbils? I mean, really?
Sure.
Sure. What about Litter Training Weekly? Actually, that might not be a bad one if you've got a new kitten. I mean, just saying. But your stars will add viewers to them, especially early on in the seasons. As the game progresses, the shows get better. You have 5 seasons. You play through 5 seasons. And you have so many different shows, so many ads, and so many actors out. And you are, each turn you're picking one of them. You might have to pay them. Some of the actors you actually have to pay to get them onto your payroll. And then you have to pay them for every season they're on your show. Your shows will show you that the first season you put them on the air, you're going to get 10 viewers out of it if you put them into the 10 p.m. slot. So some of the shows have preferred slots, but maybe you don't have a 10 p.m. slot available. You only have an 8 p.m., then you're only going to get 7 viewers. But after season 3, your audience has lost attention for the very charismatic explosions. They've seen it all. They no longer care to watch. You might as well cancel the program. And you can cancel your programs at any time, substitute out new programs, new stars, whatever you need to do to freshen up your shows. We laughed at this one pretty good because of the names of some of these. Even the ads were hysterical.
Yes.
We're going to hold on to this. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I could see this. Well, this plays what? Does it play 6 or does it only play 5?
It plays up to 5.
Okay. So we're going to go ahead and hold on to this. Like I said, we had a good time with it. We laughed pretty hard at it. It's an interesting game. I know there's expansions to it we've never picked up because was only the second time we've ever played it, so we'll have to see. Anyway, that is the Networks, and it is going to stick around. All right.
Next, another old Mayfair game. This is Nuns on the Run. This is a lot like you said, bedpans and broomsticks.
Yes,
right?
I think this one was actually the predecessor. This was
the name of
first. Bedpans and broomsticks.
Okay.
Yes, I believe so. It's
Kind
based
of
in a nursing home.
Bed knobs and broomsticks.
Yes, exactly.
From Disney.
That one was based in a nursing home. This is based in an old cathedral.
Yeah.
Essentially, or a nunnery.
A nunnery?
Nunnery,
What
maybe.
Is it called a nunnery? Or
Naughty
is it called something else?
novices dodging discovery. The novices are on the loose. Temptation has lured them out of their cells. They're in cells?
Well, yeah, it said you had to get back to your cell.
Oh, geez. Why don't they just call them rooms? And they hope not to get caught by the abbess or the prioress. But the guards are swift and their hearing is excellent, so it will take craftiness and a bit of luck in order to make it back to their beds without being caught.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so this plays up to 8 players, and we actually got an 8-player game of it in. My brother and John played the nun or the prioress and the abbess, the abbess and the prioress, and then the rest of us all played the escapee nuns, or the what do they call them? The novices. We all played the novices. Amy and I both won. We each got back to our cell at the exact same time.
I was one turn away from
You were
getting
like
back.
one turn, I think.
Ellery was
so
one
was
turn. Because me and Ellery was following the same path and didn't know it, because you don't have to mark your person out on the board.
Much like hidden movement games, well, unlike most hidden movement games, where everybody can be seen except the 2 people, except for the one person who is trying to get caught. Well, I guess in this case it is. Only in this case you have 6 people trying to get caught, 2 people doing the searching.
Mm-hmm.
Those 2 people we couldn't see. No, they couldn't see where we were. We could see where they were. That's what it was. But if you ever were within eyesight of them, you had to tell them where you were. If you made too much noise, you had to tell them you were within so many spaces in the general direction the noise came from, so they could start heading that way. But typically, the abbess and the prioress were on a very set path. They were walking their rounds from point A to point B, and the only time they left that path is if they saw you. All right, so here's your board, and as I said, the abacus and the abbess, whatever, and the prioress, I don't know, are walking around the set paths, the colored paths here from point A to point B. And at the start, when they get to one location, they're just going to pull a card and it's going to tell them where their next location is. Simple as that. Or actually, no, they don't pull a card. They get to choose where they're going because they have to start where they are.
Yeah, they've got a map of the directions they have to go.
The novices have to get to one spot to get a key. And we all get cards at the beginning of the game to tell us exactly where that is. We have to get to one location and get a key, get to a second location to get our secret piece that we're trying to get to, and then get back to our cells, which are way down here, before we're caught. That's the game. First player back to one of the cells wins the game. Or if the prioress and the abbess catch 2 people, 2 or 3 people, a certain number of people. If they catch a certain number of people, then we win. They win. There's a lot involved in it, but it was fun. It's not something that I'm going to play on a regular basis for sure. I don't like hidden movement, but it was fun. We had a good time. I think this is definitely one of those games.
You won a lot
the
of
more players, the better. Definitely. So, but that is Nuns on the Run. This sits in the travel collection, and we're going to keep it there because it is fun. If you like hidden movement, it's a classic. It's an older one, but it's a good one. So, Nuns on the Run. It will stick around.
Okay.
All right.
Next, we have the Night Cage.
This is a newer one we just picked up at Dice Tower West about a year ago.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is a cooperative. The premise on this one is that you have escaped prison in a dungeon.
Well, you're trying to
escape prison in a dungeon. But your only source of light is candles. This is a tile placement. The big difference with this one is that the tiles disappear. As soon as the tile is out of your candle range, which is only one tile, the tiles disappear. So it is a constant rotation of tiles. You can go one way. I know I'm pulling out, it's on the very bottom.
Pulled everything out.
I have, because the board was on the bottom. All right, so here's your board. It does change up based on the number of players, which I like. This is a 5-player game. So you're putting out a tile, and you can see one direction, whichever way your path goes. If you have one that goes 4 directions, then you can see one way each direction, one tile each direction. If your tile only goes 3, then you can see those 3 because this is a wall. But as soon as you move to here, these 2 disappear. This one will stay because you can still see it, but these 2 are gone. If you come back, these tiles have changed because you're now pulling 2 new tiles. So it's a constant ebb and flow of the dungeon. There are monsters involved. If you pull a monster, the monster will blow out your light. Simple as that. He will actually blow out the light of anybody he can see.
Yes.
So, and the only way to get the light relit
is somebody else come over
right.
and relight it. But
so
in
you
the meantime,
have to end up next to somebody.
Yeah, in the meantime, you can only see one tile, and
Yes.
that's the one you're on.
That's where you really get in trouble, is because you can't see when you're pulling those monsters. You could land directly on him. So yeah, it's a very intense game, because if you lose your life, you pull a monster, you're pulling extra tiles and just discarding them. The main goal is you're trying to find your keys. There's only so many key tiles, and everybody has to find their own. So if you happen to find 2 of them, you almost have to stick right in that range, and you have to move. You can't stay still and just wait for somebody to get to you. You have to keep moving. But if those tiles disappear, there's no way to win the game. And then
there's the exits too. That you got to find, and they're the same way.
There are only 2 of them, and everybody has to get there together. So, because you have to have all of the keys in the game in order to open the gate. It is really neat. We have won it once or twice, maybe. We've shown it to a lot of people because we do enjoy it. It's a neat horror-themed cooperative game. And we have a lot of friends who like the cooperative, and we have other friends who like the horror-themed. So, but that's the Night Cage. That's an interesting one. Yeah, it's going to stick around. All right, next.
Next is NCIS. Based on the TV series, The Game.
You ever watch this one? You've watched this one.
I've watched NCIS,
That's what I thought.
yes.
Okay. All right, so this is a very, very long-running show. Matter of fact, I think it's been on for over 20 seasons already. So here is your board. This is your typical IP-based solve a crime game. I feel like we've played this exact same game several times with the CSI games and some of the others that are all IP based. So here's your board. It gives you a number of set cases. All the cases have specific cards. You have to read them in order to get the clues. Once you've played through them, you're pretty much done. So you've got 6 suspects out here that you can go visit at any one time. You have your crime scene, and then you have the stuff in the lab, the headquarters area. And you are playing 6 different people from the show. You split everybody up based on the number of players. You have to use all 6 characters at all times. And you decide where each character is going to go. Now, when you're doing this, the locations, they will state on them. Like for the crime scene, if you send Ducky there first, because, you know, he does the forensics, so why not? Then you will get extra stuff. You're going to get one of these chips. Those help you at the end of the game. So you want to try to match these up, but there's no way to match them up all the time. The most chips you're ever going to get is 5 in a round. So you want to try to match up who you're sending. And then if you decide to go there, there's a little green chip that marks how many times you've been there. Each character has their own book. You flip to that character. Even if you send McGee here, you go to Ducky's book, you read this section.
And then take
number
notes.
260. And then you can take notes. There's a big notepad here you can take notes on. As a group, you're trying to solve who did it. That's basically it. You're not going to get to all places. You're not going to get to read all the clues. So you kind of have to decide which clues are more important, who is your suspect, and you try to hit everything you can on that suspect. we got it right.
Yeah.
We solved the crime. This one's leaving the collection. Even though the series is still on, it is a very popular IP. It is still an IP. There is not much of a game here. It is basically a big game of guess who. I mean, that's really it. Did you read the clues right? Did you get to the right clues?
It's a deduction game.
It's a deduction game. I don't feel like it's a very good one.
No.
So this one is leaving the collection. But that is NCIS. I love the show. The game,
Not so much.
not so much. Yeah. All right, next.
Next is the Bad Influence game. This is Neom. Oh, well, our box is creased too.
Yeah, I saw that when we brought
Anyway,
it home.
so-
We took this with us on our recent vacation
Yes.
and introduced this to Jeff from Tabletop Toolbox, who immediately bought it. He had never heard of it. And now he and his wife both love it. So there you go. This is Neom, Create the City of Tomorrow.
If tomorrow is like tomorrow.
Yeah. You play the game in 3 generations. It is a tile placement, tile drafting, tile placement game. Everybody starts with a board like such. The only difference on the boards, the landscape looks a little different. It's all artwork, but everybody starts with a different starting resource. That's really the only difference in the boards. That's it. Everybody has, well, they say to put these in just a big pile in the middle of the table. I have them separated out by player count, so it
Because
just makes it
everybody
easier.
gets one.
Yeah, everybody's going to hopefully end up taking one of
And
each.
all they do is
on
mark
top
what
of your board,
resources
yeah.
up on top so you know what resources you have.
Yeah, right, so you know which
And
ones
so
you
everybody
generate.
else can see what resources you have, basically.
So throughout the game, you are taking tiles and drafting them. If I can get some of these out of here without making too big of a mess.
Yep.
You are taking, and I of course grabbed 3rd generation. So you play the game in 3 generations. Each generation, your technology increases a little bit. So you get points based on how you connect stuff up. You lose points by putting residential areas next to pollution-producing plants. Kind of what you would expect in a standard city building.
SimCity, the board game, is a lot
Right.
of people have explained
Right.
it as.
I've never played SimCity, so I always forget that connection. I know. I was...
You're not a video game person, so.
I am not. No. So anyway, so you're drafting 1 tile out of a group of 8, depending on player count. I don't know if that changes by player count. I know in a 3-player game it was 8. The 2-player
so.
variant in here, it was completely different, but we're not going to go into that. You're drafting a tile. You're laying it out on your board as long as the roads match up. Well, let me rephrase that. The roads do not necessarily have to match up, but they have to always travel you back to your center, to your city center.
So like Alhambra.
Everything. Yes. Yes. As long as you can travel the road on the tile you just laid back to your city center, it is a legal placement. So you have to be careful not to block yourself off. So as you are laying stuff down, you are looking at the icons it needs up here. If you don't produce those resources, then you have to buy them from your neighbors, and you can buy them from any of your either of your 2 neighbors at a discount of, well, no, for $2 each, or well, depending on what it is, for anywhere from $2 to $4,
10.
$2 to $10. If you manage to connect through one of the outer roads, then you get a $1 discount. If you produce the item, or in this case, all 3 items, then you just lay it down on your board. In the corner, it tells you what you produce. So if I were actually able to lay this one down on my board, I would now be able to produce microchips. And I could pull my microchip token out of here and put it on top of my board so that everybody knows I can produce microchips. So if you need them, I got them for you. Meanwhile, you're collecting money in between each generation because a lot of these will give you money. You can sell the tiles for $5 a piece if you can't lay them. You have cornerstone tiles you draft at the very beginning of the game that if you don't want to lay this one, you can now lay your cornerstone tile down in its place. There's a lot going on in it, but at the same time, it's so simple. So yeah, I really like this game. I had forgotten how much I enjoyed this until we played it at the cabin with Jeff.
Well, we only played it one time
We
before that.
had, and we both really enjoyed it then. So this one sits in our collection. It is going to stick around. We both do very much enjoy this one. But that is Neom, Create the City of Tomorrow. If you like tile placement city building games, I know this is one that is not really well known, but I really like this one. It's a good one. All right, that's it, but it is going to stick around. All right, next.
Next, we have Nothing Personal by some guy named Tom Vassell.
So we bought this one off of, well, you found this one.
I think it was on eBay.
You had to have found it on eBay.
It was a long time ago.
It was a while back, and we had found out about it by watching the Dice Tower long before we started the channel. And you wanted to have it because Tom Vassell designed it.
Well, it looked pretty cool.
It did. It did. It's all about gangsters and whatnot. But it has since sat on the shelf because we did not realize it was a 3+ player.
Yeah.
And it is hard for us to get those played, because there's always other games I want to play when we do actually have people over.
Mm-hmm.
So we took this one with us because Jeff had played it as well. He already knew how to play, or he had played it before. So he refreshed his memory and taught us how to play. This is a very take that kind of game,
yep.
which again is not our thing typically.
Mm-hmm.
It is area control in the aspect that the areas you are trying to control are not
mobsters.
Yeah, they're mobsters. They're not places.
And the power that the mobster gives you.
Yes. So everything's on the bottom.
Yes.
I'm going to show you some pictures here because there's a lot in this box. So each player has their own little box full of tokens. These are what you use to lay down influence. And then you have your little mobster guy who's on the scoring track. On the board, you have a number of gangsters, and you always start with the same gangster in the capo location on the board.
Yeah.
And he is the most powerful, so he is definitely the one you want to try to control. And then you randomly put out a number of people below that in all of his different spaces. You've got the banker, and I can't remember half of them now, but you've got a bunch of different titles underneath the capo. And you have all these different gangster cards in there that you're trying to influence. Each space on the board has a specific power that it gives you at the end of each round. But then again, half the gangsters do.
Well, each space will tell you how many points you're going to get and how much money you're going to get.
Yes, you start with that. So you start the round out by, and of course that's all written on the board. The round casing is all, the round order is all on the board. But you start the round out by basically placing your influence out. And you place your influence out using influence cards. The cards will dictate everything you can do. And you get cards based on how many people you're influencing. So for instance, this one says I can place 3 influence on the capo. So I would take 3 influence out of my little box, or out from in front of me. Or I could save it. Well, this one isn't even so much a save. This one says I may play this during the crew. There's an action during the game called, or a phase, I should say, during each round called the crew. And at that point, that's where you are starting to determine who has majority on each of the gangsters. And I could play this one during that area if I paid $5. So I might be able to, at the last minute, gain the influence I need in order to control him. Others state, place 2 influence on any gangster, or this may be placed at the time to change the target of a whacking. So during the gang phase, where you are going through and you're determining influence and who has what abilities and stuff, or who has what powers, then you could maybe change. If somebody was going to whack you, you could maybe play this card and change who's going to get whacked. Somebody dodges in front of you, or you dodge behind somebody, whatever. And then there are and cards where you can do both. So this is to place 3 influence on the first guy, which is,
that's one of the slots.
The capo's #1 slot, right? And you must allow one other player to place 1 influence on any gangster. So yes, you get a lot of influence on one person, but you also have to let somebody else do it. So throughout the game, you are outbidding people on areas or out influencing people, and they don't get their influence back. It stays there. You only have a limited number of influence. At one point, Jeff actually ran out. If there's so much influence on any gangster at the end of the round, they go to jail.
If there's 9.
If there's 9 or more, right, they go to jail. So maybe you can't get the influence, but you need that guy out of there because you don't like his ability.
So you plop a
You plop a couple down there just enough to attract the police. There's a lot of take that in this. There's a lot of back and forth. I was afraid it would be a lot meaner than it was.
Yeah.
I actually enjoyed the play
Well,
of it.
it all comes down to like almost any take that type of game is who you're playing it with.
Yes, yes. And we had a good time with this one. We
This
really
has
did.
a bunch of expansions.
It does.
We have almost all of them,
Yeah.
if not all of them.
I think so, yeah. But yeah,
And there's a second edition of it. This is the first edition.
Is it? Okay. So this one has sat in our collection on our unplayed game shelf for quite a while. We're actually going to move this over to the travel collection because it's just not something we are ever going to pull out and play. But I can see it getting played at an event. So we're going to move this over to the travel collection and see what it does. I don't want to get rid of it, but at the same time, it doesn't need to take up room on our shelves. That room is very limited anymore. So, nothing personal is, nothing personal, but it's going to move over to the travel collection. All right.
Although with
Oh, my goodness, yes.
that's heavy. Although with all of our friends, that might be one for the 24th.
Oh, this might be. This could be fun, actually. Okay. All right. We'll add that to the list.
Okay, last we have New Frontiers, the Race for the Galaxy board game, which it is. It is Race for the Galaxy board game.
It
We
is.
got to play this with Jeff
At
as
the
well,
cabin,
with
yep.
the Starry Rift, the new expansion, the
Yes.
Starry Rift,
Yes.
which he did not realize was already out, so
Nope.
we beat him to it because he really likes the game too.
All right. So, with this one, if you've ever played Race for the Galaxy, a lot of the icons are identical. I don't even want to say similar. They're identical. So you have, I'm trying to get down to player board. Oh, there we go.
That's the player board there.
So everybody starts off with one of these boards, double-sided, so you can choose which side you're going to play. And the new expansion came with just a couple more. So you start off with one home planet. The idea is that you're building more planets. The game ends when one player gets 6 built, 6 completed planets, or 7 including their home world.
Yeah, your worlds go out here, your technologies
Yep.
go in there.
So you are building technologies. There are even some double-sized technologies down here that take up 2 slots. These are expensive, $9 to build them. You are gaining credits as you would expect, but this one adds in explorers that you also have to have. Every planet requires explorers that you have to have for it. That is my favorite part of the game, though. Instead of using cards as your production, you have these beautiful cubes.
That look like crates.
These are gorgeous. I love these. I wish, and that's probably why this box is so
They're
big.
like
is 'cause of
space
these.
crates.
They are. They're gorgeous. Okay. So you're building out your technologies, you're building out your planets. When you explore, you pull so many planets out of the bag, and they're all flipped over to the gray side, so you can see exactly what it does. And then as you are able to settle it, because you don't pay anything when you pull it out, but just like Race for the Galaxy, now I have to pay $4. You don't have to pay cards, you pay dollars or credits. You have to pay 4 credits, but I also have to have 1 explorer on this guy. Yeah, you can barely see it. If I flip it over, you can see it better. I have to have 1 explorer open to go here. So I have to leave 1 explorer on this tile once I flip it over. So, and the idea is to get 6 of these flipped over. And then you play another round and then game is over. But when you explore, you pull out so many, you get to pick the first one. Everybody picks 1, and then whoever chose the action picks another one. So you get whoever chose the action ends up with 2 of them. I like Race for the Galaxy. I do. It's quick. This one I think there's a little more meat to, but but I really I much more enjoy this one than I do Race for the Galaxy if I had to choose. But that is New Frontiers, the Race for the Galaxy board game. It and its expansion are going to stick around. This box weighs a ton.
Yes,
There's a
it does.
lot of cardboard in it.
Well, it has the expansions in there too.
Yes. Yeah, the expansion's in here. So that is it for this episode. Again, let us know if you like the shorter formats.
Until then, we'll see you at the next one.